Minnesota basketball fans, welcome back to the Living in Loserville podcast. He's Aaron. I'm Chris. And we're here to talk some Timberwolves / Gophers basketball. And it was a pretty good weekend, right? Gophers got a win shorthanded at that in the barn against the Rutgers teams who had been playing pretty good of late. I think they're like 5th or 6th in the Big Ten right now. Big win. We talked about how last week we needed to stop the bleeding, and they definitely stopped the bleeding with that win. Since we last spoke, not the Gophers, but the Timberwolves are 2-1. So we'll kind of, that Knicks game was last Tuesday, so there's only a couple of things that we'll talk about that. But last night, a really solid win, against Brooklyn, who's a solid team no matter who's on the court. They were missing a key component, of course, but they're a deep roster and they still are star-studded. So that's anytime you get a dub over them, that works. The Atlanta game, the third quarter, messed up the Timberwolves in a variety of ways. So we'll talk about what the hell was going on in that game. 2 specific calls that were like, okay, I mean, that's a foul, but what? It's just a little extra stuff there. So we'll talk all about it. I think the Timberwolves sit at the 7th seed as we speak. It's kind of been going, from 7 to 8 to 7 to 9 to 7, kind of all over the place. I think the Lakers lost and the Clippers lost, so that helps in general. But obviously, 3 weeks into April is when it all really counts, and that is, of course, the playoffs. So we're going to get into this in just a moment. If this is your first time listening to the Living in Loserville podcast, welcome. It's available in a variety of ways. It streams live on blogtalkradio.com/Rope-A-Dope Radio. You don't have to go to Blog Talk and Rope-A-Dope and download the show there. Listen to the browser. You can find this year's Timberwolves / Gophers podcast on the Rope-A-Dope Radio Podcast, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, Player FM, TuneIn, Amazon Music. We're also part of the Grueling Truth Sports Podcast Network. While you're at it, why don't you head on over to thegruelingtruth.com. And another way is our Living in Loserville Spricker page that Aaron set up a little over a year ago. So check that out. He has some other podcasts as well there. Living in Loserville Spricker. And one more thing, if you're thinking about cutting the cord or you're not quite happy, I got something for you. It's called DirecTV Stream. The prices start as low as $69.99 a month. It's the best of live TV and on demand. No annual contracts, no hidden fees. If you upgrade to the Choice Package or Ultimate Package, that'll give you 3 free months of HBO Max. Plus, you get to enjoy regional sports networks with no additional fees, which you are finding that with Bally's. To watch the Timberwolves, it gets hard on some of these cable packages, and they're starting to charge for it. Hopefully they come out with that app here. I heard it's coming here soon, where you can pay $10 or $15 and see anything on Bally's. That would be cool. But anyway, Premier Package, that'll give you HBO Max and Showtime. That's DirecTV Stream. So, the podcast is obviously called Living in Loserville, but that was not the case the last, 7 days since we last spoke last Monday. There's not a lot of positivities January, February, March, and April for the Timberwolves, generally speaking. But there is a ton of them right now. In the Gophers, Aaron, got a much-needed win, and we got it from a variety of vets and a guy that's been a Gopher twice. And then, some folks that might, that will be here next year that are young. It's just a good team win in general. It was just, I'm glad for the squad and Ben Johnson that they, because they had, what would they get to 1-4 or 1-5 in conference? They really needed that.
Yeah, they did. And, you got a pretty good performance out of Peyton Willis and, and is that expected? I'm not sure, but like you said, Rutgers isn't a terrible Big Ten team, and you've been on the snide for a while in the Big Ten, so it was nice to get a win there. And then you're right about the positivity. Late January, early February, it's very little to find, and it's been cold, and then not so cold, and snow, and then not so much snow for a while, and so the Timberwolves are playing pretty well. And that's a little positivity as well. I mean, it could be the opposite. You could be watching I think we did some last year where there was like 2-week spans of no wins from either squad. So that definitely isn't the case this year, and I'm glad for it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We'll start with the Timberwolves, and that fourth quarter, it was nice to see ever since the Knicks started winning, because they've sucked for quite a while. They did make the playoffs last year. It's funny, the Knicks in Atlanta, the two teams we played during the week last week, Tuesday and Thursday, both of those teams played each other, and they were pretty much surprises on the East, especially Atlanta, how far they went. They're struggling right now. They're missing a couple of players, but they did have probably their best two players. They were missing a little bit of depth. But the Knicks game, whenever the Knicks are just pretty decent, which is kind of where they're at right this moment anyway in the season. They had a better year last year, but that place is just jumping, MSG. And it was nice to see the squad in a tight-ass game. The Knicks actually, with like a little under 8 minutes to go, had a 5 or 6 point lead. We had a couple of miscommunication type turnovers. What I liked about it, though, both bigs, Robinson, who isn't some sort of like all-star player, but he's just big. He's a big freaking guy, and he was active, at least against us. I haven't watched a ton of Knicks this year. He fouled out fairly early. I think it was like 98 to 97. I think they were down. And then 90 seconds later, it kind of went back and forth. Makemba started going off, but then Gibson fouled out, who also, as we know from the 2017-18 season, just a solid vet. A lot of folks, in the media were like, man, why Gibson's a dinosaur. He's not even going to be in this league anymore. Why do we even have him on the team? Well, he's doing still pretty good to this day. What is it, 2022? Yeah. So he's still there. It was kind of crazy, though. Down the stretch, Cat missed this open layup that kind of came to him late. It wasn't an easy layup, but it was just one of those things where it just came off, and you're like, really, dude, what the hell? D'Lo ended up hitting 2 free throws, tightening the game to 1. McDaniels missed a free throw. We missed a couple of free throws down the stretch, but with 29.3 left, Ant had a steal in that realm too. But, yeah, that's what it was. He passed it to McDaniels, wide open three, missed it. We just had moments where it could have been more of a comfortable win, but that's okay. They got the job done. Cat got an N1, finished it, and the Knicks kind of, they missed a free throw down the stretch as well, actually. But, man, that was a good win in a hostile environment. And Cat with these N1s, we talked about last week, I think I mentioned this, that he was second in the league in N1s and also first as far as finishing them, hitting the free throws. And that was – you don't get a lot of Cat late game per se, because usually they're just going to clog the lane on him. But he was like, no, we're getting this W, even though it kind of looked like this game was going to get away from us down the stretch, that Knicks game at MSG.
Well, it's nice to see, like you said, like Cat down the stretch. I think a lot of times it's sort of a liability, because if he doesn't get the calls that he thinks he's going to get, he'll throw a fit or something like that. But he's been getting the calls more, and I think that's just due to the team winning a little bit more often. And like you said, he had clutch, and one there. And he's been kind of getting, Chris, if you noticed, some of the calls that maybe he wouldn't have got last year, he's getting a few more of those. And, I mean, some of them were pretty bad last year, where it's just pretty blatant. But due to his behavior and the team's lack of success, I think probably wasn't getting those calls. But now he is sort of, and especially at a clutch moment like that, you need him to get those calls, especially if you're going to go to him late. I mean, you have other options, but if you're late in the game and you're down 2 and you got Cat and their centers fouled out, I mean, that seems like easy money. And, it wasn't exactly, but it got the job done, like you said. So I thought it was a good performance up against Tibbs again. And we talked a little bit about, that's always the name we can never remember, Taj Gibson. And like, what a great piece that would be for us right now. He's almost exactly what we need. Maybe a couple years younger to be, perfectly to make it, the best case scenario. But he's a big guy, rebounding, defense, block shots, kind of the power forward that we're looking for. And so always good to see him. Glad he's still in the league, and I've just been a fan of him for a while. And the league is better when the Knicks are good. And the Knicks aren't great yet, but they're good. And like you said, MSG gets rocking when that's the case.
Yeah, that is a good point, too. I mean, obviously the league offices want the Knicks to be good just because of the sheer size of the market. But, man, don't let Brooklyn and the Knicks get good. Golly, that conference final would be crazy. So we talked about, hey, let's split on the road then. We can get one of these. And the Atlanta game, although I really love the focus early on in pretty much the first half of the game, 42-28 or something like that. Ant and D'Lo going off. That was in the first quarter. The Hawks made a small little run. D'Lo went back-for-back threes. It's 56-41 with 7 minutes left to go. D'Lo had like 18 early, and I'm pretty sure Ant wasn't far behind. He looked like he had. I think D'Lo ended up with 31. It looked like both of those guys were going to go for 30 that night. Once again, the Hawks kind of shrink some of the lead and get it down to like 9 or 10. But then at half, 73-61. So I really like the energy coming out. But these last few games, the third quarter has been kind of herky-jerky. And you'd expect the Hawks, especially at home, they're an offensive juggernaut still. Their defense this year is lacking, no doubt about it. That's what made them down the stretch last year so good and in the playoffs that they could score and defend. Like I said, they are missing a couple of solid pieces, but they made a run. And before you know it, it's probably 3-4 minutes in to the third quarter. They're up 78-75. It's kind of a grinded out game over the next couple of minutes. And I think right around the 6-minute mark, so 2 minutes later, something like that, Ant gets ejected. And it was one of those things that the ref just took it personal. And a lot of folks were talking about this so much so that they, printed the rule area in the rule book. Like, okay, this is actually what the ref's supposed to do. And this has been like this, Aaron, for a couple of years now. They say they're trying to get the refs, once they call a tech, to just walk away or kind of walk away from the scenario, turn your head and just walk. So let the player, or especially the coach, and usually it is a coach, just calm down a little bit, But it was kind of crazy because the ref looked at that like two different scenarios, and just to back-to-back tech them, it just felt like he was just getting emotional and took it personal because that was just ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard to tell exactly what was going on, but I think you kind of nailed it. I mean, the rule is that they're supposed to back up and kind of de-escalate the situation. I mean, that's what it's in the guidelines, I suppose. It's not really a rule, but to kind of escalate it in the sense that you text somebody and then looking around for someone else to text, it's like, okay, well, was something said there perhaps, or has it been an ongoing conversation for the other part of the game and finally the ref is, fed up with it? It's hard to really tell. I don't know. I didn't really see any of the interviews. Chris, you probably did, but if like Ant explained what was going on, but they have egos too, and that's the way it goes sometimes, particularly the NBA. The refs are way more involved as far as personally with the players. So anything could have been said, anything could have been done. It could have been a holdover from a game ago. You just don't know. But yeah, you're right. It was weird.
I mean, it's a tech. Okay, cool. That's a technical. Cool. Tech. It's not like he got a tech earlier in the game and that's what got him out. There was just no second incident in the game. He's like, well, you yelled at me from a distance and then you came up to me and yelled at me. Whatever, scream, yell, talk to, very, like very mean. I don't know what it was, but you just don't double text someone. It'd be different if Ant pushed him or something like that, or threw the ball, like he got teched picked up the ball and threw it in the crowd or something like that, or down the court. But it just didn't line up with what they're supposed to, rule. But then later in the quarter, actually at the end of the quarter, Atlanta's, I think they've gone up by like 8 by now. So Karl-Anthony Towns fades away, and he does kick his leg out. And anyway, they give him a foul. They give the player that tried to defend him a foul, and he actually makes the shot and then looks down on him. So, okay, here's the problem, though, and this is like call it both ways or don't call it. Like 2 plays before that or something like that, literally, that same guy, got in Towns' face and said something. No tech, no nothing. But then it's crazy, though. So the quarter's over. They go and look at it during a timeout. They come back, burn some more time to look at it. And then they say, okay, hold on. We got to play the end of the third quarter a little bit because that's actually a flagrant. The kick was a flagrant fall, right? And I do think like the fadeaway dirt move, you do kick your feet. But I think his foot was a little high, and that's what made it a little awkward. Like, was that a kick, or were you trying to do something there? But then they also – they gave him a flagrant and then teched him for talking – he actually didn't talk shit. The dude was on the ground and he eyeballed him. But that's like, all right, cool. One of those are a foul, but you got to call it both ways. The dude literally like 2 minutes earlier got in his face clearly and didn't get it called. And, then we go over like Jokic and a couple other people just this week just going off on the refs. Way more than what Ant did, no tech, and some of that I get with Ant when he's younger. The double tech was bullshit, but I've really never seen too many times where they go to check to see if he got the ball away at the end of the quarter and then be like, you know what? Take the points off. It's a flagrant fall, which it's just kind of weird. I think it should have just been a foul. I don't think it was a flagrant fall. He didn't hurt anybody. And then he got a tech too. It was like, what the hell's going on, man?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell. You have like certain refs. Maybe it's a situation where this ref has always been a thorn in our side, and so, I don't know his name. I'm not, familiar with the referees' names in the NBA, but or their histories for that matter. But it's been a long time since we've been battling with these referees, and I'm not saying that this is the case, but speculating is like, well, maybe this guy has something against somebody. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. But you're right. It seemed like a little heavy-handed. Both actually, all 3 of those techs seemed a little heavy-handed. And there has to be some history there. There has to be some explanation other than, the usual home cooking or whatever it is. But
right.
I can't explain it, Chris. I mean, you're right about the kick and the guy was talking in his face. I mean, that's a retaliatory standover. It seems pretty normal and tame for the situation. So I don't know what was going on there, but I think you're right in your assessment. Is it seemed odd in the course of the game.
Yeah, and that guy, it's like Dave something. I can't remember his damn name now, but he seems like a pretty even-keeled guy as a track record. But like you mentioned, I don't know the detail of this guy. I've definitely heard his name multiple times. Seen plenty of games he ref, but it just seemed weird, man. It just seemed really weird. Now, D'Lo kept going off. A couple other players played well. They didn't get just stomped after that, but it was hard to like make a full run without Ant. And Pat Bev had twisted his ankle as well. We kind of forgot to mention that. So, we just couldn't get all the way back in the game. We tried to make it a game, but never really got fully back. So you're thinking, okay, 1-1. It is what it is. We got a couple of days off now, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I was wondering if Pat Bev would make it back. He didn't. Doesn't sound like it's a high ankle where he'd be out for 2 more weeks or anything like that. They're probably, at his age, you just be careful, give him an extra day off if he needs it or whatever. I haven't really heard too much about it, but, they gave the guys a couple of nights off just to kind of rest. They've been on the road a lot lately, so I felt pretty good at 1-1 in having that, like I said, time off. Now, anytime you can face the Brooklyn Nets without Kevin Durant is a good day. Yes, they still have Harden, and yes, they still have Kyrie, who went for 30. But it's a good day. It's like, hey, this becomes a winnable game. And, and D'Lo once again got it popping early and often. I think within like 4 to 5 minutes, D'Lo had 10 points. Ant hit a couple threes right away. And one of them, he's getting the shooter's touchdown. One of them bounced on the rim twice and went in. I was like, oh, boy, Ant's starting to get the shooter's touch. And then, of course, Noel came in. I think he had 11 first-half points, got a nice N1, and it was 37-36, pretty much a score fest in the first quarter. Once again, we got some bench play, Aaron. Go ahead.
I was going to say this is the fun one. This is the one I want to talk about because the scoring was spread out. It was a lively game. Yeah, it wasn't a hell of a lot of defense played, obviously, at 125-136 to finish the game. But like you said, you got to kind of give it an asterisk because Durant wasn't there. But I thought it was one of the better performances I had seen of the season. And, you mentioned Noel. Prince played well and hit a good three. McDaniels showed up defensively and in transition and in the three-point line. So I thought, what happened in the Hawks game might have been a matchup thing, I think, with the bench, why we kind of struggled in the third. But in this one, it seemed like we had the upper hand as far as matchup goes for the bench. And I think it showed, later in the game as well as probably close to the end of the second half. So I thought it was a well-rounded thing. I mean, you've got Vanderbilt had 9 points, but there's 2, 4, 6, 8 players in double figures. And, nobody has a real high number. Edwards at 25, but Towns at 23, Russell at 23. So you get that, but then you get, double digits from other people. And it just seemed like a performance that if you could bottle it and use it on a nightly basis, this is one of those ones you want to find.
Yeah. I mean, at half, the Wolves bench was 10 of 11 from the field. Naz Reid was even blocking shots. He had one really athletic block. Ant down the stretch of the second quarter had a beautiful end one. And at half, comfortably up by 10 points. I think they were 17 of 19 from the line, which is really cool. And we talked about how these third quarters of late have been a little funky. Last night, for a while there, the second chance points, I think, were 15-4. So that definitely, we needed an improvement there. McDaniels hit 2 clutch threes where we really needed it. I think it was 86-74 after those to kind of spread them back out and get a nice lead. Cat had another N1 down the stretch. And it was 102-95 because, Brooklyn stayed around. Kyrie had like 22 points early in the fourth, like I mentioned, I think he had 30. And with 9:44 to play, it was 106-102. So they had come, far back, but the nice little spurt to make it 111 to 102, then 117-105, literally from 9:44 to 7:54 to 6:01. It's now a 13-point game. And Cat, who had been quiet, had a big fourth quarter, 5 for 5, 13 points. Like you mentioned, Prince didn't miss a shot. 3 of 3 from three-point land, 6 of 6. The only in 2 more and ones down the stretch too. I'd like to check up on that stat. I bet he's leading it now, Cat. But the only negative thing was Ant at the end of the game was limping. But he did kind of, there's no official statement or announcement, but on IG he said, I'm good, basically. Like, we're good. Everything's good. It just tweaked a little thing. We're going to be okay. So that was the only negative. Like, whoa, what just happened? What happened? So, yeah, I mean, like you said, the Durant thing, it is what it is. As we know, when we the last 2 seasons, well, not this season, but the previous 2 seasons, Cat missed extended amount of time with a variety of stuff, a wrist, COVID, like all sorts of stuff. So it all counts on the ledger, so that's what it's all about. But the one kind of weird thing about this season, and we mentioned it minorly last week, was the offense, how they're still kind of stuttering, still kind of figuring it out. Obviously the COVID, time didn't help us on the court per se, but they were talking a lot in the presser last night, the post presser, how seeing those guys out of necessity spreading the ball, it kind of is like, we're trying to find our spots. We're trying to get used to our lineup and the rotations and everybody kind of figuring each other out, because it's still only like less than 50 games or 55 games that the big three's even played together. So, but it doesn't seem like there's this big push to get shots up from the big three right now. It's like, who has the hot hand? They're moving the ball more. And they talked a lot about that last night, how just sitting on the COVID sidelines, watching this, second unit plus like dudes that haven't been in the NBA for a little bit, spreading the ball. And ever since, they hit the ground running ever since they got fully back from the COVID issue.
Yeah, and it's the stuff that you want to see, like ball movement. I can remember a couple plays maybe a couple weeks ago where it was 9-10 passes before a shot. It's stuff that you're not used to seeing from the Timberwolves and even in the NBA itself. And I think that's a huge thing, as well as, a lot of this rotation stuff, Chris, like you said, like mixing who in at the right time against who, matchups, things like that. And there's a lot of teams you're not going to see a lot. You're not going to see a lot of the Nets. You're not going to see a lot of the Hawks during the season. So I think you can watch film and you can do all that stuff, but when you put your guys against their guys and start to see the matchups and what works and what doesn't, you have to kind of go on the fly there and see what's going to work for you that night. And I think Finch does a pretty good job of that. I think maybe in the Hawks game, he kind of, maybe tried a few things that he probably wouldn't try again. But in this game, I thought he matched up pretty well. And then you got hot hands coming off the bench, which is always good, but you can't really depend on that. You just kind of have to go with the flow on that. And I think a good shooting night from Russell, a good shooting night from Ant, and, Cat just doing his work in the post is probably what you're going to have to depend on and just see what you can get from the bench on a nightly basis. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. I think offensively, that's kind of where they're finding what works and what doesn't. And hopefully that's what we're seeing here now is like a growth maturation process and also a little bit of experimentation as to what might work. That's what I'm hanging my hat on for. And I don't think it's something that's going to last, but I think it's something that a few more games, can kind of get your rotation where you want it and know what you have and what at times of need, what to use. And that's where I think we're at right now as far as the progression of the squad is going.
Yeah, and like I was saying since January, the NBA is kind of a month-by-month thing or an every 10 game by 10 game, that's basically what it breaks down to. And, ever since we became more full strength anyway and got a good, we know Pat's out again a little bit, but pretty much full strength. They're 6-3 in those games. I think they're 7-3 in their last 10, if I'm not mistaken, which is, big because there was that 4-1 stretch on games we need to win against teams that are, ranked lower than us off record. So we gotta win most of those games. But, since January, turn the clock at 9 games, the number one offense in the NBA at 119 per 100 possessions is, the Timberwolves, still in the 16 range on defense. Now we have played some more offensive juggernauts. We got more of those coming up. So that kind of skews some of that number. But overall, a 4 net rating of a +7. And another thing here, someone pointed out, we're already at 23 wins. And there's still 36 games on the schedule. It took pretty deep into the season to get to 23 wins. So we just got to keep everything kind of in front of us. But 23-23 right now is a damn good schedule. And you can even bring it back to when we got off to a nice start, we lost D'Lo and Pat Bev, one on like a 6-game losing streak. And since then, we're 20-16, and that's COVID as well. We're top 10 in both offensive defense, but it was after that 6th straight loss where, we just kind of got our shit together, the old player meeting thing. But the player meeting, we could talk about that because every sport has a player meeting if there's a team, right? Like we really got to, whether it's like a number 1 seed that lost 3 in a row or like us that lose 7 in a row or 6 in a row. But Pat Bev, they keep talking about how he just like went to every player and says, what is your role? And that's what we need out of you. And that's it for right now. And he really kind of broke it down. And sometimes you need that in between from the coach to the player. And Pat Bev, even though he's not playing, he looks like an assistant coach out there on the bench, Aaron.
Yeah, he does. And you're right. You kind of need that, I guess you could say, liaison between the coach and the players, or somebody at least can enforce in the locker room what the coach is trying to get across and maybe hit the bullet points that the coach wants to stress. And I think that's what Pat Bev does. For the squad, whether he's suiting up or not, I like to watch him play. I think, defensively and 3-point shots. And like I said, he adds a little bit of fire to the squad. And I think that's his role. And, it'd be interesting to hear what they had to say about what their roles were, when they were asked the question. I think that'd be an interesting thing to hear, but we're not privy to that. So, I'm still a little bit questionable about some of the rotations, but like if it works, it works. And I get some better ideas out there. I'm not going to really outline them at the moment, but, I'm just happy that 23 wins at this point, Chris, is an amazing feat for this team. And, I think it's going to be, I don't want to say a 30 wins, to get 10 more out of it. It's hard to tell with COVID and the injuries and blah, blah, blah. I just don't want to say anything. I don't want to put anything out into the universe right now. I just want it to continue to be like it is at the moment and win at the rate that you're winning at. And like you said, we're already in a seed here. Try to preserve that, but obviously don't keep that in mind. And, because you just don't want to – I'm in a don't jinx it mood right now, and I just want to continue to see what the squad's going to do. And I think we outlined last week what we thought the season was, and I just want to continue to see that being the plan.
Well, real quick on rotations, I did think, and ultimately even Finch said that they probably tried to go 11 and 12 deep too early, and I think that was a bit of a mistake. But we do have some guys on our bench that can play ball, no doubt about it. And I don't know. We'll get into a little bit more rotational stuff maybe next week or the week after or something like that. But that's one of the things that stood out to me, and he's tightened that up a little bit. Okogie got in last night only because Pat B was out. But coming up, it's just offensive juggernaut.
Yes.
Portland is a more winnable game on the road now than it has been because Lillard's out. Now, do they still have good ass, team, players? Hell yeah. They got some matchups that are really interesting for us, but there's no must win or whatever. But that being that we got to go against at Portland, at Gold State, at Phoenix, and then next Sunday, come Monday, we'll be talking about these 4 games. Utah at home. That's rough because Golden State, Phoenix, and Utah are the top 3 in the West, and they're looking real damn good. I suppose Memphis, we could sneak them in as well. When I look at this stretch, Aaron, I look at can we get to 2-2? Beat Portland on the road, whether it's in triple overtime or whatever, and get a game out of Golden State, Phoenix, or Utah. Get one of those games. If you go against basically what looks to be the top 3 in the West, like I said, Memphis, you're there. But if you can get one of those and beat Portland, we're coming back next Monday, 2-2 out of that stretch, 25-25. I'd be a pretty happy man.
Yeah, these are all tough games. I'm looking at it and I'm just like, okay, well, Yeah, Lillard's out for the Blazers, but they're tough defensively. You're on the road. They're always kind of a thorn in our side, no matter how good we are or they are. We beat them a few times, but it's been tough. The Warriors, we play well against them for some reason, but depending on who's on the court there, it's going to, weigh out that game. So, I think and the Suns obviously are a tough opponent, and the Jazz are always tough on us as well. So, like you said, these are 4 tough games, a good litmus test to see where we're at. I mean, yeah, you don't have Memphis in there, but you have pretty much the top of the Western Conference. You're playing pretty well, and you want to come out and show that you at least can be competitive. Now, you don't want to, be winless in those 4 games. Yeah. But, 1-4, depending on who it is not a terrible thing as long as you're competitive and they're, close games and you're competing. I think, 2 of 4 is asking a lot, but possible you could get the Blazers. You might be able to get the Warriors, or you could just get the Blazers and the Jazz. I think those are 2 winnable games. The Warriors, if they're got their full lineup, it's going to be tough. But like I said, you always seem to play well. Ant seems to play well against them. And the Suns is tough too. I think that's a loss for sure, the Suns. But I like us beating the Blazers and the Jazz in the next 4. I think that's possible. And you could maybe even steal one from maybe the Warriors. But that's awfully optimistic.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, hey, I think we'll be sitting pretty if we can get through that stretch 2-2, man. I know that we've been playing better and all that, 7 of the last 10 and all that, but, there was a stretch in there that were a lot more winnable games. Now, they don't have Larry Nance Jr. Covington's day-to-day, so he might play tomorrow night. But Nance Jr. is a pretty long type of guy that gives us minor league trouble because, as we know, rebounds and giving up offensive rebounds. Vanderbilt, carries his weight because of his offensive rebound, defense, versatility, and all that, just hustle in general. And now he's passing a lot more and finishing strong. But we still give up a lot of second chance points, still give up a lot of offensive rebounds. But that's why, man, if we can come back next Monday and be 4-4, then you're looking at a Denver team who's always tough, no doubt, but, they're missing 2 of their top 3 players. And then Detroit, Sacramento. Now, all of a sudden, you could look at that as a 3-2 possibly stretch out of those 5. If we're lucky, 4-1 like the last stretch we had when it comes to this type of thing. And then, it's basically like, let's get to February 1st, you know what I mean, and get to Denver, and hopefully we can go 2-2. Any more Wolves-related stuff, sir, before we move on to our Golden Gophers?
No, let's just talk about Gophers. Now, I've been keeping a pretty good eye on the squad, and, I thought the Michigan State loss was our tough loss because he played really well, and they're a good team. Iowa is always Iowa. They're just going to elbow you and beat you, just kind of like their football team. It's the same sort of fundamental type of thing where you got to have the bodies and you got to have the attitude to beat them. And at times the Gophers have, but at this point we don't know. We get to the Rutgers game. I didn't know what to think going in. I thought, Rutgers is playing decently well. We've not played well in the Big Ten, so I was surprised to see the win here.
Yeah, so was I, especially when we're missing, 2, well, really with Curry, 3. And thank goodness Curry I hate to use the word tweak in Minnesota, but at least it's a different sport. It's not the Vikings. We can't use the word tweak anymore for a while, even though we do when it's, just for fun. But 3 out of the 5 starters out. That blows me away. And the co-player, Big Ten Player of the Week, Peyton Willis, the 2-time Gopher, 8 3-pointers, 32 points, a career high. I didn't see that coming. Like you said, I definitely didn't. Another guy that's starting to show us a little something. He needs to get stronger. He's not, he's a 7-footer from good old Glenwood, Minnesota. That's where the water's from, right? Glenwood, that water company. But he had 8 points, 3 for 3 in 11 minutes, coming into this game. And, Charlie Daniels, who I think is like a super senior, if I remember correctly, he's been playing okay, and he had 6 assists for a big man. That was pretty damn good. But Thompson, 10.6 boards, had a steal, had a block, played 40 minutes. That's another thing. Well, we played two guys off the bench, Aaron. Yeah, they played 6 minutes total. We had three guys that played every single minute, and the other two starters, Sutherland and Daniels, played 37. But that Lowy hit some key shots down the stretch as well, 3 from 5 from 3. And, we didn't get to the damn free throw line hardly at all, but neither did them. It was a really weird game that way. I kind of felt that, but now I'm looking at it and I'm like, holy shit, like this has got to be 3 for 3 and 3 for 4. Like that's got to be one of the lowest free throw. That is weird. We had a lot of turnovers. That's what kind of kept them around. But it's hard to complain. I was so glad when we brought Willis back. He was a good player early on, but we were so guard heavy that it was hard to keep him. So I understood why he went other places, but it's nice to have him back. And man, I didn't even mention, the 7 assists as well. This guy has just hit the ground running, since he's been back. It's fun to have a double gopher like that, kind of crazy in this COVID stuff.
Yeah, and you like you said, you don't have the big guy. His name escapes me at the moment, but not Curry, the kid. What's his name?
Oh yeah, I know what you're saying.
I forget his name. It'll come to me. But like you said, it was gritty performance. It's like you got 40 minutes out of 3 guys. You don't expect to get 32 points, 7 assists, and 8 3-pointers from Peyton Willis, although you do expect to get something from him. But you couldn't really afford to foul in this game. The refs helped you with that. I mean, you just didn't have a lot of players. And to come out and perform that way, I mean, just want to think what they were talking about in the locker room before the game. It was just probably, don't foul, do your stuff, let's get through this one. And, sometimes, you catch a hot hand like that and it works out for you. But I like the Lowy kid. I thought he played fairly well. The Thompson kid, we need some more big men, but Jamison Battle is the name I was trying to think of.
Oh, yeah. He's kind of a swing man.
Yeah. And then, he's usual Minnesota kind of big man. I mean, you're not going to find, with the rare exception, you're not going to find these exceptional big men here because they go to other places. But,
right.
You get, like you said, the bench minutes were you got 37 minutes, 40 minutes, 40 minutes, 37 minutes. You paid 5 guys basically and maybe gave the other few guys a breather, and that was it. And you managed to win a game against a good opponent. Obviously, you don't want to find yourself in the same situation again, but you might. And it's nice to know that if you got to play some guys 37, 40 minutes, that you can do that.
Yeah, exactly. And, no rest for the weary. We are going to get some guys back, though. That'll be good. Hopefully no one had like a hard bout with COVID, so that keeps them out longer. But, it is nice now we don't play to the 27th, so that gives us a little time there. But Ohio State, Wisconsin, and then Purdue. So by the time we speak again, it'll be Ohio State and Wisconsin. Both ranked teams. What is it, 16 and 11? This year it's hard to be like, all right, we're gonna win 2 out of 3, or it's just a different year. The expectations are so low. I want to see, especially the guys that are going to be here for a couple of years, and then some freshmen. Not a lot of freshmen playing for obvious reasons, but except in this last game, I guess. But overall, the expectations are so low, Aaron. I really just want to see the product on the court and how, even if they're down 17 with 10 minutes to go, how do they finish those games?
Yeah, you're going to need bodies coming down this stretch. You can't afford to go into this stretch here like you went into the last game. Wisconsin's tough. They'll beat the crap out of you. Purdue will do the same in Iowa, like we said earlier. And that's what they live on. So, and I don't know what's after that. Nebraska. Okay, so you get a little bit of a break. Nebraska, Penn State after that. But then you're Ohio State, Northwestern again. So, I mean, if you got to rest some people up, but you need the bodies at least for fouls in these next games. And Wisconsin's tough, man. I think that's kind of the mold we're trying to build our program in. And then Purdue is just a bunch of guys that are, they're just always tough. Always tough. Since we've been little, they've been tough. Just a tough team.
Good guards. Got
good
a
guards.
Good starting center, and they'll have a backup that'll be the future starter,
Yeah. So you're kind of stacked in this run here now. So it's good that you grabbed a win. Try to grab another one if you can. And, like you said, we can't make a lot out of this season. Let's just kind of see where we're at. And hopefully you get to a place where you have what you think is the core for next year. And that's kind of what you're at. But you got to survive a nice little stretch here, Chris. I mean, this Wisconsin-Purdue back-to-back thing is not fun.
Yeah, and this is some folks may be like, dude, you can't think that way. That's a loser's mentality. But it's like, I actually want to try to make the NIT this year, because if we get there, that's just another 48 minutes plus or 40 minutes plus that we'll get with the team. And like you said, some of those guys, there's some guys that are going to be gone next year. I think 3 of them. But I do want to see that. If we could win a game in there, get another game, any kind of reps together and just implement his system. And like you said, it does kind of feel like we're trying to do the Wisconsin thing, much how we've been doing it in college football with the Gophers. And so much so that we want to build it, because 3 out of their starting 5 and probably 4 out of their best 5 guys, Aaron, are from Minnesota on the Wisconsin Badgers core. So that pisses us off, but it does show you that if you build a team with some depth and you build guys that'll be here 4 and 5 years, you could just, once you get it going, you could just keep rolling out experienced players, and then here and there, like they got a really good player this year. Maybe in 2 years they'll get another one. But they're not putting many first-rounders in the draft. But we know even if they get off the crappy starts, the Badgers, they tend to tighten up, and next thing you know, they're in 5th place in the Big Ten. Not this year, they're really good. But, yeah, man, it is one of those seasons that just like kind of finding little things to latch on to for next year.
Yeah, and speaking of that, like I was kind of skeptical of the Ben Johnson hiring and all that. I just didn't know where I stood on it. But after the press conference, after the Rutgers game, I'm pretty much on board. I think this is a good deal here. I think good things are coming with the program, and I just think just be patient. This is, as PJ Fleck would say, year 0, and I think they picked a good coach. I think just now hold on and let him put a squad together. I'm on the Ben Johnson bandwagon now, so I think that's a good thing for the future. And I just think, just like with Fleck and the football squad, I think just got to, let it do its thing, let him recruit, let him get the players in that he wants. And like you said, we got to start closing the borders, to Wisconsin and Iowa. If you can do that, if you get the blue chippers are going to go to Gonzaga or wherever it is that they go, but you got to get that second tier locked down. And I think that's basically what Ben Johnson's trying to do, is like you get the next kids then and you fill a roster with them and you hopefully succeed with that.
You got to get the kids from Glenwood is what you got to do. No, you're right though. It's true. In Minnesota, like when you look back at us in high school, Minnesota basketball was just starting to get going. As far as national, it was just starting to be like, oh yeah, hey, he went there and he went, oh wow, that's pretty good. Rather than just a handful of players in the last, 20, 30 years, prior to, us following the team. But, yeah, man, Minnesota actually, if you look at the top 20, 30 players or whatever, and you see it every tournament too. You see like 6, 7 players that are just solid players, so hopefully, like you mentioned, we got to close those borders. Any last words, sir, before we shut this puppy down?
Nope. It seems like both teams got a tough stretch ahead, and I think we'll get to see what they're made of in the next week, and we'll try to explain it and talk to you about it next week.
All right. We'll be back next Monday. That's it for Living in Loserville. It wasn't Loserville this week. Peace.